2 hours? That's all it took. Not a new degree, not a lucky break, not the right connections, just 2 hours a day. This man worked the same dead-end job for 6 years, lived in the same small apartment, earned the same paycheck, felt the same quiet frustration every single morning, until one conversation changed the direction of his entire life. He made one decision, just 2 focused hours every day, and committed to it for 90 days straight. No excuses, no skipping, no waiting to feel motivated. And what happened on day 65, nobody saw coming, not even him. By the end of those 90 days, he had built an entirely new future, from scratch, with nothing but 2 hours and a decision to stop wasting them. What he did during those hours will change the way you think about your own time, and it might be the most important thing you hear all year. Before we get into his story, I need you to be honest with yourself for a second. How many hours every day do you spend actually building your future? Not surviving, not scrolling, not watching other people live their lives online. Building, creating, moving forward. Drop your honest answer in the comments. I read every single one, because most people have never stopped to ask themselves that question, and that's exactly why they stay stuck. This story is about what happens when someone finally answers it. His name was Ethan, 31 years old, living in a small one-bedroom apartment on the north side of Chicago. He worked customer support for a mid-sized shipping company, 9 to 6, Monday through Friday, answering emails, handling complaints, de-escalating frustrated customers. The work wasn't terrible, but it wasn't anything close to what he'd imagined for himself at 22. The paycheck covered rent, utilities, and groceries. Barely. There was nothing left at the end of the month, not for savings, not for experiences, not for anything. Just enough to get to the next month and do it all again. But here's what really wore Ethan down, and it wasn't the job. It was the feeling that his potential was slowly evaporating, like sand slipping through his fingers, and he couldn't stop it no matter what he did. He had dreams once, real ones, learning UI design, building a freelance business, working remotely, traveling, actually seeing the world instead of just scrolling past pictures of it. But somewhere between 22 and 31, the dreams quietly turned into survival. And survival leaves almost no room for ambition. Every night he'd come home completely drained, not just physically tired, mentally emptied out. So he did what most people do when they're running on empty. He escaped. Netflix, YouTube, hours of scrolling, video games on weekends. Not because he was lazy, he wasn't. He worked hard every single day, but because tired people look for comfort every time. And that escape became the cycle. Work, escape, sleep, repeat, work, escape, sleep, repeat, month after month, year after year, until he stopped counting the years. One night, a random Tuesday in October, Ethan got home from work and did something unusual. Instead of turning on the TV immediately, he sat down at his desk and opened his laptop. He wasn't sure why. Some instinct, some quiet pull he couldn't explain. He opened an old folder he hadn't touched in almost 2 years. Inside were the pieces of the person he used to think he could become. An unfinished design course, halfway done. 3 business ideas he'd written down late at night when he still believed they were possible. A freelance portfolio template he'd started building and abandoned after 2 sessions. A list of skills he'd planned to learn. None of them learned. He sat there looking at that folder for a long time, and for the first time in years, he felt something he hadn't expected. Not sadness, anger, not at his boss, not at the economy, not at circumstances, at himself, at the hours he had given away so freely to things that built absolutely nothing. He did the math right there on a notepad. If he'd spent just 2 hours a day for the past 2 years building those skills instead of escaping, That would have been over 1,400 hours. 1,400 hours of design practice, of building, of creating. 1,400 hours that had simply vanished into screens, into content, into nothing. He closed the laptop and sat in the silence of his apartment, and that question, the one he'd been avoiding for years, finally surfaced. What am I actually doing with my time? A few days later, Ethan met up with his childhood friend Marcus for coffee. They'd grown up on the same block in Wicker Park, lost touch for a few years, then reconnected. And when Ethan sat down across from him at the coffee shop that Saturday morning, he immediately noticed something was different about Marcus. He looked healthier, more present, more alive somehow, like the background noise of life had been turned down for him. Ethan asked him straight up, "What happened to you, man? You look completely different." Marcus smiled, took a slow sip of his coffee. "I stopped waiting for motivation." Ethan looked at him. "What does that even mean?" Marcus leaned forward and said something that Ethan would repeat to himself for the next 90 days. "I started protecting 2 hours every day, like my future literally depended on it." "Because it does." Ethan laughed. "Genuinely. 2 hours? That's your secret?" "That sounds too simple." Marcus didn't flinch. "It is simple. That's exactly why it works." He explained it like this. Most people spend their entire lives waiting for a big dramatic moment of change. A sign, a rock bottom, a sudden burst of motivation that makes everything click. But that moment almost never comes. What actually changes lives is something much quieter. 2 focused hours every single day, spent deliberately building something that matters. Not 2 hours of half-focused multitasking with your phone nearby. 2 hours of deep, distraction-free, intentional work. Do that for 90 days straight, and your life will not look the same. Not might. Will. Then Marcus used one word that stuck in Ethan's brain like a splinter. Inevitably. 2 focused hours every day, repeated long enough, changes things. Inevitably. Ethan drove home that afternoon in silence, thinking about that word the whole way. Inevitably. That night, Ethan sat at his desk with the laptop closed. No TV, no music, no phone, just him and a blank notepad. And he asked himself the question he'd been avoiding for years. If I had 2 free hours every single day, what would I build? He already knew the answer. He'd always known. Digital design, UI and UX. The skill he'd started learning twice and abandoned twice, not because he didn't love it, because he'd never protected the time. He wrote 3 words at the top of the notepad, the 2-hour rule. Then he wrote the commitment below it. 90 days, 2 hours, every single day. No excuses, no skipping, no negotiating. He didn't post it online, didn't tell anyone except Marcus. He just taped it above his desk, where he'd see it every single morning. And then he set his alarm for 5 a.m. Because if he was going to protect 2 hours every day, he needed to claim them before the world had a chance to take them. Ethan didn't just decide to study design for 2 hours a day and figure it out as he went. He built a system, because decisions without systems, fail every time. The system had 4 rules, and not one of them was optional. Rule 1, 2 uninterrupted hours, 0 exceptions, phone in another room, notifications completely off, no music with lyrics, no background TV, just the work, and his full, undivided attention. Research from the University of California showed that after a single digital interruption, it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully regain deep focus, which means one notification doesn't cost you 5 seconds. It costs you nearly half an hour. 2 hours of genuine deep focus is worth 6 hours of distracted, half-committed work. Ethan understood this, so he protected those 2 hours like they were untouchable. Rule 2, One skill, one direction, no exceptions. Not design and copywriting and business strategy and Spanish lessons all at once. One thing. Ethan chose UI design because it connected directly to the life he actually wanted. Remote work, creative projects, financial independence. The skill had to matter. It had to lead somewhere real, because motivation doesn't sustain you through hard mornings. Purpose does. Rule 3, track every single day, no guessing. Ethan printed a simple 90-day calendar and hung it beside his desk. Every day he completed his 2 hours, he drew a large X through that date. That chain of X marks became something powerful. By week 3, he didn't want to break the chain. Not because of the skill, because of the streak, the visual proof that he was someone who kept his word to himself. That kind of confidence no one can give you. You have to build it yourself. 1 X at a time. Rule 4, no 0 days, not one. Sick, 2 hours. Tired, 2 hours. Frustrated, 2 hours. Had a terrible day at work, and the last thing you want is to open a laptop? 2 hours. Not because Ethan was a machine, he wasn't, but because Marcus had told him something he never forgot. The days you least want to show up are the days that define who you're becoming. Consistency isn't about discipline on good days. Everyone has discipline on good days. It's about showing up on the hard ones. The first week was genuinely uncomfortable, not painful like a hospital, uncomfortable like a muscle being stretched for the first time in years. Ethan's brain, trained for years on quick dopamine hits, absolutely hated deep focus. Every 10 minutes, he felt the pull. Check Instagram, open YouTube, just a quick break. His mind invented reasons to stop. I'm too tired tonight. I'll do extra tomorrow. One night won't hurt anything. He recognized all of it for what it was, not logic, resistance, and he kept going anyway, day after day. 2 hours, sometimes terrible, sometimes distracted, sometimes exhausted, but never skipped. By day 10, something quiet happened. He sat down for his 2 hours and realized he hadn't thought about his phone once. The resistance was still there, but it was smaller. And something else was there too. Something that had been missing for years. Momentum. By the end of month 1, Ethan had done more focused learning than in the previous 2 years combined. He'd completed 3 full sections of a UI design course, built his first real design project, a simple mobile app interface. Nothing professionally polished, but completely his own. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he stopped consuming constantly and started creating. That shift from consumer to creator changed something fundamental in how he saw himself. He started thinking of himself differently, not as a customer support rep who wanted to do design someday, as a designer who was still learning, but a designer. Identity is built through repeated action, not through declarations. Ethan was learning that firsthand. The second month felt completely different. The 2-hour sessions stopped feeling like discipline and started feeling like something he actually looked forward to. His mornings changed. He woke up with a purpose that hadn't been there in years. Not excitement exactly. Something steadier than excitement. Direction. He stopped binge-watching shows every night, not because he forced himself to stop, because the 2-hour sessions were more satisfying than anything he'd been escaping into. His co-workers noticed the change before he did. "Ethan, you seem different lately, more focused or something. What changed?" He smiled and said, "I stopped waiting to feel ready." By the end of month 2, his portfolio had 3 real projects, not mock-ups, not exercises, real completed design work. He posted them online for the first time, just to see what would happen. Around day 65, something unexpected happened. Ethan got a message on his portfolio site. A small startup had seen his work. They needed a freelance designer for a short-term project. The pay wasn't life-changing, But that completely missed the point. The point was proof. Proof that the future he'd written on that notepad 90 days earlier was real. Proof that he wasn't stuck. He had never been stuck. He had just never shown up consistently enough for the doors to notice him. He completed that project, then another, then two more. By day 90, he had a real portfolio, real clients, and real income from design work. Not enough to quit his job yet, but enough to see exactly where the path was going. And he attacked those 2 hours with more intensity than ever. 6 months after that first night at his desk, Ethan handed in his resignation, not impulsively, not dramatically, quietly, on a Monday morning with a full client roster and 3 months of freelance income already saved. He called Marcus that afternoon. "You were right. 2 hours, repeated long enough. It worked." Marcus laughed. "It always does. Ethan didn't become an overnight success. That's not the story. The story is simpler and more powerful than that. He protected 2 hours every day. He showed up when he didn't want to. He kept the chain unbroken. And the future he'd written off as impossible turned out to be completely inevitable. Here is the truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Your future is not built in giant dramatic moments. It's not built on motivation. It's not built on talent. It's not built on the right opportunity showing up at the right time. It's built in small, repeated hours, one focused session, one kept promise, one day you showed up even when you didn't feel like it, over and over and over. 2 hours a day is 14 hours a week, 60 hours a month, 730 hours a year. That is the equivalent of 90 full working days every single year. 3 months of extra time that most people are currently trading for content they won't remember by tomorrow. Think about what you could build in 3 extra months a year: a new skill, a portfolio, a freelance income, a business, a completely different career. All of it is possible. All of it is available to anyone, including you. The gap between the life you have and the life you want. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not timing. It's 2 focused hours, repeated daily, without excuses. And that is something every single person watching this has the ability to do, starting today. So here is your challenge. Simple, specific. Starting today. Step 1, choose your 2 hours. Not someday, right now. Look at your schedule and claim them. Early morning before the world wakes up. Late evening when the house gets quiet. Find them, claim them, write them down. Step 2, choose your one skill, not 5 things. 1, the skill that connects directly to the life you actually want. Design, coding, copywriting, video editing, a second language, financial planning, whatever it is, it needs to matter to you, because when it gets hard, purpose is the only thing that keeps you going. Step 3, build your chain. Print a 30-day calendar. Hang it somewhere you can't ignore. Every day you complete your 2 hours, put an X through that date. Then protect that chain like it's the most important thing you own, because it is. Step 4, come back and tell me what changed. 30 days from now, 60, 90, drop a comment and tell me what you built. If you're committing to the 2-hour rule right now, not tomorrow, right now, hit the like button as your promise to yourself. Then comment, 2 hours start today. 4 words, a decision, a line in the sand between who you've been and who you're becoming. Subscribe, because every week on this channel, we bring stories of ordinary people who changed their lives through discipline, consistency, and daily action. And share this with someone who keeps saying they want more, but can't seem to start. Maybe 2 hours is all they needed someone to give them permission to protect. One day, you're going to look back on your life, and you're going to remember exactly how you spent your time. Not the hours you spent perfectly, the hours you chose deliberately to build Something real. Ethan didn't have special talent. He didn't have connections or a lucky break. He had an old folder full of abandoned dreams and a friend who told him the truth. 2 hours. That was it. That was the whole secret. Not 2 hours when you feel inspired. Not 2 hours when the circumstances are perfect. 2 hours. Every day, whether you feel like it or not. Your future is not waiting for you to be ready. It's waiting for you to begin. And maybe, just maybe, the distance between the life you have and the life you've always wanted is only 2 focused hours a day. What are you going to do with yours?